I have a question. Athletes in colleges, like the colleges setting up NIL deals, right?
Yeah.
Can the players set up their own deal with you also?
Depends on what they're looking for. For me, from a management side, it would probably be more of a contractual side of just like helping them get those deals. But if they wanted to do something specifically where like they're with us and now that we're building more options, right? Like if they said, I want to build a podcast through Boundless Ventures, I want to get into your
Right.
performance space, right? And do those things. I want to start making music, something along those lines. I think that they could do a deal with us where they start getting connected to all of our assets and our resources. But as far as a deal, I would say that deal would have to come with like from a managing perspective.
The reason I'm asking is like Simeon Wencher plays at St. John's. I mean, he was
He's
player of
good.
the year in
Like
New Jersey last year.
he's a
Right?
dude.
His sister plays on my team.
Okay.
All right, and I met him, and he's a very personable guy. I'm kind of wondering, like, is that a guy that, I'm sure he's getting paid a lot of money at St. John's, through
I would like
NIL.
to think.
All right,
Yeah, at least he's going to be on track too.
but Mike, like the other day, I'm up at Rutgers, so they have a player, Destiny Adams.
Right.
All right. Now, Destiny Adams was one of the best players in New Jersey. She went to North Carolina for a freshman year and then transferred here. Right. And I was talking with the director of basketball ops who was saying she has, she's gotten, a bunch of NIL deals here and things like that. But I'm just curious, like, can that player also get a deal from the outside, or do they have to stay in the university with it?
Oh, they can absolutely get a deal from the outside. Yeah, like if they wanted to stay away from the university and
No, let's say they want the university and they wanted you. Could they use both?
yes.
They can.
Yes, they can use both. It can sometimes become a conflict of interest depending on who's negotiating that deal. So usually the school doesn't necessarily have to negotiate it unless they have someone like in their compliance room
Right.
at the in the athletic department who's helping them acquire them. Because most of what the school has to do is just look at it and say that this deal they approve this for the athlete to have. But yeah, that's where I think the conflict of interest could come into play. But if there's nobody on that side working on it, but the school gives them like resources to go find their own, yeah, they could work with two people.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just become the hard part. I think on our side would be percentage wise what comes into play, and that's kind of why the app is going to be such an important role in the business of what we're doing, because we eliminate that. We eliminate the percentage aspect of what comes to play because we just want to have
You just
the
want the
subscription.
residual income
Correct.
coming in that way. Yeah, I get it.
Correct.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And it's
So
just
you know what you're going to kind of get then.
every single time,
Yeah.
right? And now
The
and
other
then,
way
and
you
then it
don't.
becomes a real volume game, which I think all the time for most agencies it becomes a volume game when it comes to managing athletes. Like a Rich Paul at Clutch Sports, like he negotiated like I think in like 2 days for the NBA when the NBA free agency came around. He could negotiate up to like $3 billion in deals, but like that's based off of him working with like 30 people, and so over the course of time, like you want to get to the place where it's volume and then it gets really easy because like those negotiations for a guy like him are not super, what would you call it, intense when it comes to how he has to negotiate for the player, right? Like for when it's a Fred Van Vliet who's averaging 20, 25 a game and they want to give him money, it's really like what's the industry standard for where he is
Right.
at that number, and then they just reach it, So,
gotcha.
but for the kids and for kids and athletes at the high school and college level, we have to actually prove what their worth is, right? Like I think that's the major issue. That's the major issue of NIL right now is how can you help a place understand what their value is going to be over the next 4 years because they're constantly changing. The athlete itself is constantly changing mentally, emotionally, physically. And so it could change in the right direction up and you hit lightning in a bottle sometimes or
Right.
it goes down and now this person doesn't want to play basketball or,
Right.
football or baseball anymore. And they're like, I kind of want to just hang out with my girlfriend now,
Well, you know what? I kind of wonder how that's going to change when people are making money. all of a sudden, it's like a little different than, like somebody sits there saying, one of our players, Gianna Kufu, man, she turned around to some other kid on our team saying, hey, I'm not worried about a boyfriend right now. I want to get a college scholarship. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I was always wondering, my thing with the NIL was I was always wondering, like, if it was ever a thing in between the teams, like on the same team with these big schools like LSU and Alabama, if the players that are getting these big NIL deals ever thought about that, like the backups aren't getting the deals that these starters are getting, and if that ever kind of affected their team. I don't know if you could speak on that.
It's interesting you say that because I think it has the ability to. Like, I think it absolutely can create a riff.
Oh, no, I'll tell you exactly what. All right, this is with Chucky's daughter's boyfriend, right? Marquise Watson is the defensive line coordinator for Rutgers. So I was with him. He actually came on a road trip with us where we're all sitting in the bus, and it's me, him, and Kathleen talking. And I'm like, man, how's it work? Like, how much is your quarterback at NIL deal, right? So he was like, he goes, the guy was getting paid $100,000, last year to, that was his deal, and this is when NIL just started. It has since changed.
Yeah.
Their best player, the MVP, was their middle linebacker, I think it was. All right. And the middle linebacker was looking to leave because he was getting $50,000. Now, last year, the quarterback of Rutgers had a shitty year.
Yeah, right.
They lost because their offense their defense was great.
Yeah, the defense was fine.
So the guy turned around telling Shiano, wait a minute, man, I should be making more money than this guy,
Right.
So,
which I like that you can negotiate for yourself that way. Like, I think that if you understand your value, it doesn't mean that you don't want to be at this college level. Like, I think the college level is still what it is. It's still big and grandiose.
I think what you're going to see in sports, and I'm going to say 10, 15 years down the road, because this is filtering now, into high schools and things like that, right?
Right.
I think back when I played, nobody got paid for coaching, right? Your high school coach got like $500 stipend,
Right.
And I mean, even now, like I get paid $2,400 a year to coach at St. Thomas.
Yeah,
I'm not in it for the money.
No, same thing.
And now you have all these trainers. Like, we didn't have trainers when I was a kid. So I happen to manage a guy named Gannon Baker, who's the #1 trainer in basketball in the world. All right. So when I hear about basketball trainers, my first inkling is this guy as good as Gannon?
Right.
Because I know what Gannon gets paid.
Right, yeah.
And this guy's asking for this amount of money, let's say. Is that worth it? There is no volunteerism anymore. That's kind of gone out the window for the most part, except for like Little League. You still got the fathers that'll do that, right?
Yeah, right.
But what's happening is sports is becoming such a business. And why? Because look what happened with Manchester United. Manchester United is the one that started over in England. Because they started having all their, what's it called?
They're like club teams, yeah.
They were the ones who got into like club where they were paying people to go into it. And now you're seeing that in basketball and AAU. You're seeing some teams over there paying people for certain things. It is happening. So like I just look at like down the road and I guess growing up the way I did and the way things are now, to me it's a little disappointing, because I look at it like, I was into, growing up baseball because I loved it. I love playing as you did. You did, right?
Right.
And you're in it because you're just having so much fun with something. Now it's becoming a business. And now people are going for all these different things, and the amount of money parents are spending, expecting that Division I scholarship or getting drafted. What happens if it doesn't happen?
Right. Look at what you've invested.
You're setting up your kid for a major letdown.
Right.
That's like being left at the altar getting married.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Honestly,
saying? That's what's going to happen.
Now, what do you think? Do you think that the business aspect has changed the way people still look and view at the root of what it is? Like, I think even with how much money things cost, I think still people want the development. People still want the relationship building. Like, I think when it comes to the youth sports.
I think it becomes where I'm gonna throw the blame on the parent, all right,
Okay.
and not the kid, because I think the kid is looking at like, hey, I'm with my friends, I'm playing, I
Right.
think there's still some passion and love for the game, but I think it's the parent looking at it like, wow, let me do this because maybe my kid gets a scholarship because what it was like I spent 10 grand to go to college for 4 years, all right.
Wow.
And now the average school, I'm going to say,
The semester.
if you get someplace that's
Like-
30 grand, you're jumping for joy, right?
Yeah, right.
So, now it really, well, when I was at Scranton, I saw a study up there that, and I was up there in 87, 88. And they showed a study that they expected tuition to be $114,000 20 years later, all right, for 4 years.
This is recent?
No, this was in 1980.
Oh, okay.
87, 88, right? When I was up there. Well, 20 years later, the tuition at Scranton, I'll never forget, I looked at it, and it was like $118,000. So they were like right on the mark.
Yeah.
Right? But now, it's even more. It's like 50 grand, let's say $55,000 to go to Scranton University. It's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money.
Right? Now, those private schools will give you more money because they got to fill seats.
Yeah. They got a sliding scale of like how the
but,
money gets sent out. Yeah.
So anyway, you guys ready to do this?
Yeah.
We've been
We've been rolling. We're rolling.
rolling.
We've been
You
rolling.
got it. I got
Yeah,
you.
we've-
Screw up royally.
Yeah, you can screw up.
All right, this is good. I love it.
Welcome, man.
All right, I love it.
Welcome to the podcast. Tom Sclafani.
Hey.
Okay.
It's a good intro. That was a good intro.
Yeah, no intro needed.
And I like that. How's it going?
It's going, man. Life has been good. I'm going down to the end of the road a little bit.
Getting over the hill a little bit?
A little bit. Looking at retiring. Soon. I think from teaching.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to retire necessarily from Coach's Choice.
Right. Yeah, you're still spry in that.
Well,
yeah, you're still moving
it's,
and grooving.
The good part is, I'm trying to think of things now like, how do we move a little more in the Coach's Choice so that when, I transition out of, let's say, teaching, I can have some other things that I would really want to do.
Right.
There's some other projects I think I would like to try, to wrap around a little
Right,
bit.
yeah.
So, that's kind of what we're looking at. So we'll see where that goes.
That's good. And, I think I've seen you've helped me understand too at like even my age of like you're still going to keep going. And I think that we have this like mindset now at my age of like there's a lot of wealth to be had out there. I think there's a lot of really innovative ways to get there. But I think like for me, I think about like if I could retire like 45, 50, I would love that. But I feel like that's almost when I look at what you do, it feels like it's almost unrealistic for me to even think that based off of how much I'm running around.
I think what's been so different is your generation and mine, all right?
Yeah.
My generation looked at things, and I've always done this, I guess growing up this way, is I want to put a really good product out there. If I'm $2 in the black, I'm like, yay, all right, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We've been fortunate enough that Coach's Choice has built a really pretty good business overall where, we've made some, obviously good money, but it's all been based strictly off the relationships of people. When I started out coaching, I mean, you would never see this now. I was 19 years old at St. Francis College, and I'm in a coaching methods course because I was a phys ed major at the time then. And I had the women's basketball coach, Diane Nolan, was the teacher. And she comes in one day, and she's, there's about 20 kids in the class, and she's like, I'm looking for a volunteer to help with basketball this year. Would anybody want to do that? And I did this, and I turned around. I was sitting right in the front of the class, and I looked around, and nobody else's hand went up. And at that moment, I became the youngest Division I coach in the nation at 19 years old. You can't do that now. Like,
No.
You would never see that happening.
No,
right?
yeah, that doesn't even correlate to what goes on today.
The next day, she turns around. She's like, can we have a meeting? I want to just kind of explain what I'm looking for, from you. So I meet with her, and the first thing she says to me, and you got to remember, I'm 19 and I don't have a job at this is like the job, and it's free, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And she turns around, she goes, just to let you know, we're going to pick up all your gas during the basketball season.
So
I was
that's
like,
a dream.
wow, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a dream. Yeah.
And, you can always grab something to eat and things like that, and just get the receipts and we'll reimburse it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that to me was great. It was fun. And we had a men's coach at St. Francis, a guy named Lou Rossini, who ended up winning the national championship at NYU. And, a guy was involved for many, many years in basketball. And his son was a really good friend of mine. And Lou asked me all the time, like, could you scout the men's game for us when you're going to see the women's?
Right.
So I can send my assistant, Dennis McDermott, to go see another different team. Made sense, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm there, and I'm loving it, all right? And Lou, what he did was he showed me how to break down film, because back then you had these, you guys are too young, but they were reel-to-reel things,
Yeah.
16 millimeter film.
Yeah.
So,
just on that point too, it's interesting. I think one of the things I try to do as much as I can, and I always have acknowledged along the way who's helped me do something small that helped me grow into something. Like what you talked about, Lou helped you break down film.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the person who helped me break down like film in baseball. Like who helped me understand pitching at a high level, and like what do you have to do with younger kids when you get there. So it's like everybody plays like such an interesting role along the way. In that,
it's funny you bring that up, because I'm going to tell you something I did about 2 years ago. If I remember, I think it was during spring break when we were off from school for a little bit. It might have been Christmas or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I decided, because somebody mentioned this to me, saying, have you ever really just sat down and thought about all the people that have helped you in your lifetime?
Right.
So I decided I'm going to do this. And I put it up on Facebook. And what I did was I mentioned, like, I just sat and thought, and this thing, I'm going to say it was 4 or 5 hours I'm sitting doing this in my office. And I put it all up on Facebook of everybody that I could think of. Mm-hmm. And I probably missed a couple here and there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But who've helped me, mm-hmm. Do what I did. So like Ray Nash was my baseball coach at Bishop Ford, mm-hmm. all right, which school has since closed. But he knew I liked basketball when I was coaching at St. Francis, and he asked me, and the guy was like a second father to me, mm-hmm. Turned around, he goes, would you want to coach in the Big Apple games? And I was like, and that was like the Olympics of New York City.
Right.
And then that springboard to the Empire State Games, which was the Olympics of New York, okay? Mm-hmm. And it was the first year they were doing it. So I'm coaching the team, and he turns around in a meeting with all the coaches saying whoever wins gets to coach in the Empire State Games with him and Frank Mickens, who was the boys and girls high school coach. It was a great coach. Well, my team ends up winning, not because of me. I just had the talent. All right, we end up winning, and I get a chance to go up, to the Empire State Games.
Where were they at?
Syracuse.
Okay.
And it was at Manley Fieldhouse, like before they built Carrier Dome.
Okay.
And just in the practices, seeing what was going on, and Frank Mickens really kind of took me under his wing, who was a defensive guru. I mean, a guy who knew everything with defense. And I just learned so much from these guys. Like, I was like a sponge just trying to absorb everything, because my whole background was baseball.
Right.
Yeah. And, when I played baseball, I mean, that's what I wanted to do, and I had tryouts with 3 major league teams, so for me it was like, this is really what I'm hoping to do. And then you realize you don't make it. And what a letdown that is, right?
Right.
So,
now, was it the same way at that time where, like, the option to play professionally was as slim, being like, you are in the 1% if you even get the shot?
Good question. Here's how it worked, all right? I was playing down in the parade grounds in Brooklyn, and you had a lot of guys that were called bird dogs back then. They were kind of scouts for teams.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I got approached by Cincinnati Reds, and they were holding a tryout at Poly Prep, which was in Brooklyn. okay, right near my house, actually. It was about 1.5 miles from my house. So I remember going to the tryout. So I took the bus. All right, like a 10-minute ride, right? I get there, and I'm all psyched for this thing, right?
Yeah.
So I remember first thing they had us do was run from home to first, and they timed us.
Yeah.
And there's maybe 80 guys there, right? And like 20 get cut right away. Not even fielding a ball, not hitting, nothing. And I'm still in there, right? And I'm like, okay. So then they put me as short and second, so now they're hitting ground balls, right? And I'm fielding it short, making the throw, then going to the second base line, and everybody's rotating, it's moving, it's great. And all of a sudden, a guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, thanks for coming. And I'm like, you're welcome. And he looks at me and goes, no, thanks for coming.
Like, it's time to get out of here.
All right, and he goes, we have to cut you. And I was like, wow. So the guy kind of walks with me off the field, right?
Yeah.
And I said, gee, what? I don't understand, like, I'm getting cut so quick. And he goes, you can't make the throw hard enough from short. You don't have the arm. And I was like, wow. All right.
Yeah, like, what were the metrics at that time? Did they even have any for you?
Well, you know what? After that, you'd get into hitting. They had outfield and stuff, and I didn't stay after that. Like, I went home and I didn't take the bus, man. I walked home. I was so depressed.
Yeah.
It was like a long walk home.
Yeah, no, you take the long walk.
And it was different. I was offered a scholarship to go to St. Mary's of the Plains out in Kansas to play baseball.
Okay.
But I looked at it where I got hurt that summer, and I just looked at it saying, you know what, maybe I'm just going to stay home for this year. So I called the coach, and it said, this is what's going on. I had bad tendonitis in my arm. And he said, look, give me a call back. We'd love for you to come back, if you want to come out next year.
Right.
And so I went to St. Francis, and coach had talked to me about, coming on the team there. But I just wasn't, my arm was just really hurting at the time. And I decided, to kind of take that year off. And the next thing I know, I get hooked in with basketball. And that was it.
Yeah, I think the pivots you take or the shifts in life, you don't really realize when they are supposed to happen, I think it's things are so much more fluid than we expect it to be,
That was pretty similar to my story I was talking to you about before we got on, and I guess, what was the transition like going from baseball to another sport? Because I did the same thing. I'm in MMA now, and I started with baseball, and I want to hear from someone else. What was that transition like? Did you have any doubts, or what was your mindset?
My first coaching was in CYO, all right, and I was like 17, 18 at the time. I'm going to church on Sunday, and the pastor kept saying, like, they're looking for a volunteer to coach, a 7th and 8th grade team for the school. It wasn't a CYO thing. It was more of like a school team, right? So I'm going to church for like a month, and I'm hearing this every month. Nobody's taking this, right? So I go up to the pastor. I said, who do I have to see? I don't want to see kids not playing. Maybe I can try to do this, right?
Right.
So he told me to meet with the PE teacher, all right, which I did. And this guy did not know basketball. He wasn't a basketball guy.
Okay.
And I had played, but it was not my main sport by any means, And so what happened is I decided to coach the team. And the first game, this is funny. I mean, because the first game, we're losing by 1. And we get the last shot off. And this kid's coming down. He takes a shot about 5 feet from the 3-point line. And I'm like, what the? Yes! Kid was in the 7th grade who took the shot too. And we win the game, right? By 1. So, it was like all exciting and everything. Like everybody was, going crazy.
Right.
And that kind of got me like, really liking it. Like, really to answer your question, I coached that team. I had fun, Then I was able just by putting my hand up, coaching college basketball. Like, who would do that?
Yeah, right.
It just was. I was in the right spot at the right time and just lucked out.
The right spot at the right time.
Yeah.
I think that's such a major thing in all sports, but just in any industry too, is being in the right place at the right time.
I think you have to have certain luck with certain things, and you almost have to create your own luck a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just become for me was, man, just working out, and I had so much fun. Like, I didn't think of making a living really by doing that at that point. It was more like just for the passion of coaching.
Right.
And then, from there I ended up coaching at Adelphi Academy, JV team, and just really enjoyed it. I was the assistant on the varsity. Ended up leaving 1 year because I went on the police department to become a cop. And I couldn't coach when I was in the academy. Just the time wasn't there for me. The following year, I ended up going to coach over at Poly Prep with a guy named Mike Junch, Mike was great. And at Adelphi, my main mentor was a guy named Les Finkelstein, who was just tremendous. So, like, the two guys I had there, just really good people and good coaches. All right.
That's such a major part of your experience in the sport world, but also just in the normal life. Like, that also sets you up with the luck, like probability. Like, if you're around good people and around good people at their craft, like, you just end up probably doing well. Like,
it was so much fun for me. All right. Then unfortunately I got hurt on the police department. I went out on disability, got married to my wife Debbie, and then we moved up to Pennsylvania. So this is how I hooked into Scranton University. Was I wanted to go back for my master's degree.
Okay.
And so I looked at two schools, East Stroudsburg and Scranton, and they were about the same distance from where I was living. I liked Scranton a little bit more. So I was trying to get an internship there with the psychology department because I went for my master's in psych. And they didn't have any available. But the guy looked at my resume and said, man, you coach basketball? I know the basketball coach here real well, the women's coach.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to him. He's looking for an assistant. I said, really? He goes, you mind if I just give the resume to him?
Yeah.
So he called me up and interviewed me and everything. And, I had been a recruiter before at St. Francis. So he wanted me to be the recruiter, at Scranton, which I was for 2 years. And I learned from Mike Strong, the head coach, and Mike is the winningest coach in Division III. All right. I learned how to really recruit from him.
Yeah.
He once told me, he goes, recruit kids from sectional finals or better. And I'm like, man, Mike, there's a lot of good kids out there. He goes, no. He goes, there are. But the kid that comes from a sectional final or better, year in, year out, could be losing a game by 6 points with a minute to go, and they truly believe they're going to win the game. And you know what? He was right.
Yeah.
So, like, when we look at different programs sometimes, all right, like when I was coaching, Christ the King was the main name, in girls basketball. Vinny Cannizzaro, who I'm really good friends with, was the coach. And, he had unbelievable programs there.
Right.
And, we try now, when I got to St. Thomas, where I'm at now, I was coaching with Joe Whalen, and Joe just stepped down, and now Tim Corrigan's the head coach, and I'm helping him out. But Joe came from St. Anthony's with Bob Hurley. So, again, going back to that recruiting thing is that, Coach Hurley had everything about excellence.
Right.
Same with Joe Whalen. And to me, it's always been about that,
right.
So running our program, I think is quite different than a lot of other high schools.
Right, yeah.
And just trying to get our kids so involved in other things, with AAU and wherever they can, we can help them. We try to do it. For us, it's almost like a year, team, that we do. We can't be with them all the time, because of the rules and stuff. But they'll play AAU ball. I want to go watch them play. On something like that. So we're seeing how they're improving and things like that.
For sure. Do you think that moving around a lot in life, like obviously you came from New York, then you went to Pennsylvania, then you went back to Jersey. Mm-hmm. How do you think that's changed your outlook on things in sports? Like different areas of sports, like different areas of like Brooklyn, do they play differently than they played in Pennsylvania?
Completely different. When I was growing up, where I lived, 5 blocks to either side of me was a park. All right. So it was like, all right, who's going here today or who's going there?
Yeah.
And, I probably have played in most of those playgrounds that were in Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And it was so easy to get a game.
Yeah.
When I moved to East Brunswick, where I live, I remember trying to find, nobody's in the park. You'd see like 2 kids maybe shooting around, but trying to find a game of like 5-on-5 full court was hard. It was really hard. And what I did was I started a team for my son Danny, who and we were coaching, me and a guy named Cliff Ross, and then my friend Tom Jenko. And we decided, like Tom told me one day, he goes, man, we should take them all to the park, just to play over there. Maybe we get some other kids. Well, within like 3 weeks, we had like 30 kids because people heard about us going there,
Right.
And then every Saturday and Sunday, the place was packed. And, again, it was having the team we had, these guys were able to play all the time. Mm-hmm. And, I just think that's how you get good.
Right.
What I see out here now is a lot like kids will go to a trainer. Kids will, if they know they have a practice, they're always there, they're ready to go. But I don't see what was like for me growing up in the park, going to play. And I think what was so important with playing in the park was you learned how to create your own shot a lot.
Freelance,
and doing different things. Mm-hmm. I don't see that as much now as I did back then.
we even talked about it too a lot of like not only the freelancing aspect, but being able to, when you go to the park, right, in a basketball setting, like how do you want to get good at basketball, right? You got to play basketball, right? And that's what we talked about even on our last podcast where, he's in the wrestling phase and he's learning jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and all those things, and he's getting really good at it, but he'll attest to that too, but I asked him, how do you build your conditioning for wrestling? And it's wrestle, and that's kind of a way that we don't have now. It's like the trainer is where they get better as opposed to on their own. And I think they're kind of losing that work ethic. Like, you say what to that?
Yeah, my mind first went towards the whole NIL conversation we had before. It's, in my opinion, with all the social media going on, and I'm still in that age where I kind of understand what my age group is thinking, and these kids coming through high school, it's almost like all these kids see these athletes getting these big NIL checks and getting these big money deals that they're going to these trainers. They're not going to the parks because they don't see the park as their route to those NIL deals. They see these trainers who have connections.
That is a really good point.
That's a very good point.
And all this research that they've done, that it almost seems like there's only one right way to do something. Mm-hmm. And if they don't go to these trainers now, they're not going to make it to those deals later.
Yeah, like there's a very narrow path.
It's almost like sacrificing their childhood for the money.
You know what? That's a great point.
That is a really good point.
I think you see a bit of that. I remember there was a kid years ago when I was at Adelphi Academy. Her and her father came to watch one of our games. And when I was at Adelphi, if we had 10 people in the stands, it was probably a lot, right? So I happened to notice this kid for a couple of the games sitting right at center court, So after one of the games, I go up because I didn't know who she was. So I know she wasn't part of the school, and she was only like in the 4th, 5th grade. And I asked her, I said, "Hey, what's your name?" And she told me, and she asked me a question. Now picture like a 4th, 5th grader asking you this. She goes, "Coach Sclafani, I noticed that you're running a motion offense, but could you do this off that motion offense?" I was like, what?
What are you talking about right now?
And it ended up
That's wild.
that I find out this girl lived a couple of blocks from Adelphi. Tremendous player. So I invite her to come down and work out with our team, all right, in the spring, because at Adelphi we were a private school, and back then they had no rules. You could
gotta do whatever you want. Yeah.
All right. And this kid came in, and I remember giving her 2 balls, trying to do 2-ball dribbling. She picked it up like that, right? And I'm looking at this kid, and I'm like, man, this kid's really, really good. And she would keep coming to our games. Never came to our school. Her dad was had a seat on the stock exchange. All right. And when it came to looking at high schools, he called me up and he goes, Tom, I'm thinking about these schools for her. What do you think? And the schools were, I'll never forget, Bishop Kearney, Christ the King, and a little school in Staten Island called St. John Villa High School.
Okay.
And I looked at that and I was like, if she goes to Christ the King, she's going to be sitting behind this one kid for about a year. All right. By sophomore year, she'll probably be the starting point guard. She goes to Bishop Kearney, she's there 2 years because the kid they have is an all-city player.
Right.
I said, but if she goes to John Villa High School, she's going to be a big fish in a small pond. And I said, I think she'd really do well. Well, the kid went to John Villa High School and as a freshman wins the state championship by hitting 4 free throws at the end, and then wins it again junior year.
Wow.
All right. She ends up getting a scholarship to Virginia Tech, goes there for a year, and then transfers to Maryland and played at Maryland.
Wow.
All right. And her name was Chrissy Marone. And Chrissy Marone, to me, is one of the biggest basketball junkies I ever knew.
Yeah.
You know? But that's what her life was like.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a cycle.
Loved to play, you know, all the time. And I think sometimes maybe, to your point, you're missing out on some other things. And now, based on NIL and what's going on, I start seeing so many kids doing a lot of that, giving up other things.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like, I remember telling my daughter Dana, she played for me when I was coaching at East Brunswick in my AAU program. And I told her, I said, look, you know, you got invited to a Sweet 16, but we're playing that day.
Gotta make a choice.
You know, what do you want to do? And she looked at me and she goes, you know what, I'm going to call them up, just tell them to be a little late. And she went, all right, but she was a little late.
But she didn't sacrifice it. You know, she didn't sacrifice one or the other. It's like, I think that's where kids and athletes get very torn a little bit by, I got to do this because my parents paid for it, and this is, but you also have to be a kid. You have to be an athlete, but you also have to be a person.
I think that becomes more on the parent.
Yeah.
Because the kid gets torn, and the three of us have had this happen to us in life, where I'm sure there's something you want to be at, but you have something else.
Right.
And, you know, maybe you can't go for whatever reason, right?
Right.
But I think what happens now is you get so much, 2 things happen. It's the parent, and sometimes it's the coach, where the coach is like, hey, you know, you got to be here.
Okay? Yeah, right.
I learned a lesson years ago. It's by far the biggest lesson I've ever learned in life. I had a daughter who passed away. All right, my daughter Tori, and she was 11 weeks old.
Okay.
And I remember I was coaching at Stevens Institute. I was the head coach, and my assistants were running practice. And it was the first time I ever missed a game.
Yeah.
Now, she's in the hospital at this time,
Yeah.
right? And what I tried doing was getting to the games, you know, and then I'd go home. But I missed practice for about a month. And all of a sudden, one day, you know, I'm telling Debbie, I'm like, you know, I'm going to go practice today. And she's like, you got your assistants, you know, covering it and everything, you know. I said, you know, I just need a me day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I just need to do this mentally for me.
Yeah.
And I showed up at practice. No one knew I was coming. And the whole team came running over to me. And, you know, they're asking how I'm doing things. And I turned around and I said, you know what? I got a lot of garbage in my life right now.
Yeah.
And I said, I just left it at the door. I said, I really came down today because I need a me day. And for the next 2.5 hours, I just want to be here.
Yeah. Just want to hang out.
It was probably the best practice we've ever had.
Right.
And when we ended, I remember telling all the girls at the time, I said, you know, I told you before I left the garbage there. Now I got to go collect it.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll sort it out. But sometimes you just got to do something for yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe in coaching. You have to create a stress-free environment for people.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people do that.
No.
All right. Where if you're playing for me and we have a 3:00 practice and you need to see a teacher. I mean, I know a lot of people will say, you get to practice, you know, you got to be here and stuff. Me, I'm like, go take care of what you got to do. Because if you get a 50 on a chemistry test before a game, we're playing at, say, 4 o'clock.
You're not locked in at all.
You just walked out into the class at the end of the day and they hand you a 50.
Yeah.
Man, mentally, are you ready to go?
Checked out.
Yeah, you're definitely checked out.
You're checked out. I've been there.
So to me, it's always about, you know, this is what my daughter Tori, just the whole experience with that taught me, was let's try to create some stress-free stuff right here for people. Mm-hmm. Since then, all right, the teams I've been affiliated with, we probably have an 800% winning thing. Because I think doing that, where I don't want to put that pressure on some kid. Because if you're good, and like at St. Thomas, we have some kids who are really good. Yeah. All right. If they had to miss something for one day, they're still going to be good.
Yes. Right.
They're still.
I think that's the pressure that athletes put on themselves too, because they feel like if they don't, it's a detriment to like how people will view them. And you know, I think you probably felt a little bit of pressure at your age, especially going through some things, you know, family-wise, emotionally, mentally, physically, all these different things. You know, kind of get into that a little bit, because I feel like that's kind of the same page that I think we don't have now. I think the environment is so pressurized that the athlete can't fully excel. And I think the ones who do, the gap between like the team that is loose and stress-free versus the team that's not is like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, my high school days in baseball were, I don't even know what the word would be. You know, Coach Malta created an environment that was just at practice. We were practicing hard and pushing ourselves, but it was so light, and it never felt like there was that pressure to have to be the best and have to, you know, make every single play and be perfect. There was room for failure, and there was room to get better, because even if, you know, you had stuff going on outside of the practices, Coach Malta, he understood. He kind of took your philosophy that you were saying, you know, you could be a little late if you had to be a little late, and he understood. So,
you know what it is? I think it's just communication.
Yeah.
You know, if a kid doesn't say they're going to be late and shows up late, now you just walked in, you interrupted our practice.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But if now with text message, geez, everybody can communicate, right? If you text me
saying, really no excuse.
Coach, I'm running a little late, here's why, right? Okay. So now when you walk in, I just walk in, get yourself ready, and we're ready to go.
Right.
You know, we can continue going. But I think, you know, a lot of kids don't understand that.
Right.
You know, at times, because, you know, there's a lot of different things, a lot of emotions go on with them at their age and stuff like that, you know. So I think they drop the ball, you know, on things like that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But then again, as coaches, are we there just coaching our sport, or are we trying to coach them about life too? Because, you know, coaching to me has been like what a priest is like in church.
Yeah.
All right. And he has his congregation, and coaching, it's like, all right, I have my little congregation right here. What other things can we teach them besides just basketball? Can we teach them, you know, different life things and stuff like that? You know, like before a practice, a lot of times, you know, we're given some quote about something, and we're doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a little
this
bit of a
isn't-
life skill. Let's talk for 30 seconds about this. What do you think about it? What do you think about it? Okay, let's go to practice
to
now.
marinate on it a little
Yeah.
bit too. What do you think the percentage of, at this point in your coaching career, but just like youth development career, of the sport versus the person building? What do you think the percentage is now? Like, because for me, I think I've actually kind of turned the tide a little bit from a percentage standpoint. Like, it used to be like 80% the sport and like 20% like the youth development, like building the person. And now I think I've changed it to like 60% youth development and like 40% the sport.
I think when you're looking at developing kids, again, you kind of try to create that stress-free environment a bit. You want them to learn. All right? You want them to walk away saying, I learned something today.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Now, that could be on a couple of levels. It could be on, hey, I learned how to field the ground ball today.
Yeah.
Right?
Right,
You know,
right.
watch the ball go into my glove, let's say, right? And maybe there's something else you say to somebody. I remember the first time I met you. I came down, you know, Ronnie had set us up, and
Yeah,
you were running
yeah.
that program.
He was there. It was a Marlins camp.
Marlins camp.
Yeah, it was like
Right.
Marlins
Probably
baseball
that
stuff.
Campground
Yeah.
type thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's the first time I met Quinn, and I never forget this. Some kid asked you a question. I forget exactly what the question was, but you just bent down and gave him your undivided attention. Like, you answered it, and he said something else, and you just zeroed in on the attention to that kid.
For sure.
And I think with trainers, I see this in the basketball world a lot, is I'll see a trainer, first of all, how many of them teach defense?
Right. Yeah, I'm teaching all facets of the game.
I asked the first day I was at St. Thomas, we're at center court, I say, I got one question. How many of your trainers, so this had nothing to do with our basketball practice,
Right.
how many of them teach defense? Not one hand went up. Not one.
Yeah. It's not glamorous.
And I said, well, just so you know, man, that's the first thing we're doing today.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's, there are too many trainers that want to keep kids because they want to make money,
Yep.
right? As opposed to really developing the kid. Because what a lot of people don't realize, take recruiting. Your best recruiters are your team. Because when you're doing an official visit, and now you're hanging out with that recruit,
Yeah.
they're going to know, this is a good place for me. You know, I
Yeah.
might be a new coach and you may not like me, but you might be in your junior or senior year.
Right. Yeah.
So you're not leaving, right? And, you know, meanwhile, you're telling the recruit. And I really think, you know, it goes back to the golden rule. You know, get treated the way you'd want to, treat people the way you'd want to be treated. You know, it's really it.
Right.
And I think coaching is the same way, but I see so many people out there where it's a big money grab.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And I'm not telling people not to make money, but, you know, what are your margins?
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Right.
What are you really?
There's a way to do business
Yeah.
efficiently
Yeah.
and do it right, where you don't have to invest so much time into volume.
And how much time does that trainer help you with recruiting? You know, a lot of them will put up, you know, stuff on social media and stuff, okay? But like me as a coach, you know, especially when I was coaching in college, you know, I can be watching you go through cones dribbling a basketball, right? But I've never seen a cone play defense in a game.
No.
Right? Now,
Right.
have somebody that's playing you
Yeah.
a bit, you know, saying, hey, we want you to go in the zigzag, and we want someone just even on you. All right, you're simulating the game.
Right.
And then maybe turn around and say, all right, so Quinn, now steal the ball.
Yeah.
You're trying to steal, you're trying to dribble it, right? And now that person really has to work, you know? But I don't see that,
Right.
you know, a lot. And I think that's the difference. Sometimes when people are looking for trainers, you know, it's really looking at, like, what's your body of work really like?
Yeah, right.
Because kids will sell the program because they think it's good.
Yes,
Right?
right.
My question is it really that good? It's
Yeah.
not bad, but is it really that good?
Yeah, is it separating
Is it
you from
worth
everybody else?
$50, an hour or something like that?
Right.
That's the difference that I see with that a little bit.
I want to shift a little bit more toward the one of the things I've always kind of taken a note of in my own life is like the mediums of things. So like things that I find different meanings and how it grows in my life too. So like public transportation, right? Like public transportation means so much to me, like when it comes to like growth, right? Like what I thought about when I was on the train, what I thought about when I get onto a subway, how it manifests into like where you are today and like those different
You do
the
a lot of
humility.
thinking on a train.
You do a lot of humility.
Yes.
You're a New York
Yes.
guy who's I'm sure has taken a lot of public
A lot of
transportation. How's that kind of affected you over the course of life, and how, because you're a driver too, you go from pillar to post, you're going to different tournaments, different places. How does that affected your thought processes, and do you think it's been efficient for you when it comes to like ideas and things like that?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that ever.
I think about it all the time.
Now let's say I live in my car, a lot, right? Just driving here, for instance,
Yep.
it's say a 40-minute drive, let's say, to get here from my house,
Right.
And what am I thinking, about a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. You're so right, like with being on a train, or a bus, because
Some of my best ideas have come. Some of my manifestation
it's
has
a lot
come
of
from.
thinking. Well, two things happened to me on trains. It was either late at night and I fell asleep,
Yeah.
or it was really thinking, just a lot of thinking that would go on.
It's the real. I think driving and public transportation is the only place that you have to yourself anymore. Like
That's
real,
a great point. That's why I
real
like the
place
question. I love
that
the
you
question.
have, and because I mean, it's one of those places where people are to themselves, and they're all kind of in that same spot of like, I'm thinking about what my week's been, what my day's been, how I'm feeling internally, because like you give a lot to people over the course of a day or a week, and I can't sometimes wait for that drive.
Well, years ago, all right, when I was a lot younger, I was into running a lot. Right, I love going running, and to the same point,
Right,
I ran because it was my time,
right,
and I could
Yes.
think. I did a lot of thinking then. I also used to either I'd run or I'd go out on my bike, let's say, and go on a 10-mile bike ride, let's say. But you're thinking when you're doing that. I think now you don't have the time for many reasons. You have the internet, the ways of communication. I want to get in touch with you. I text you. Your phone pings. Anytime it pings, everybody's got to look at it, right? Think about it.
Yeah, I
Almost
do.
wherever you're at, you're kind of like taking a
Yep,
look.
or your hand's ready to get
Now-
to it.
If you're texting somebody, you're expecting me to give you an answer like in the next 15 seconds.
Yeah,
You
at
know,
the
that's
very
what
least,
happens.
yeah.
So the world from when I was a kid is so fast,
Yeah,
right? That, business has increased because of the internet. But it also means I don't have any time to think like I used to.
yes,
So
you
that's
have less
That's a
discernment.
great question that you just threw out there, because, what do people do to really take that time?
Yeah.
Um,
And what is that time allowing you to do? Like, is it allowing you to unwind? Is it giving you chances to think and manifest and start putting kind of ideas out there? Because like, I'll create a whole business plan from now until the time I get to the facility, which is an hour and 10 minutes away, and I don't think I'm going to trade that in, anytime soon. Like, I don't think I'm going to trade that time in, because the time that you do have in these areas of work, like you're moving, and you don't have that ability to create that momentary time. And then when you get home, you got to give again,
What I think is really important with time, and in the summer, like I'm busy with Coach's Choice, like now with planning, like the high school events we have, things
Right.
like that. Like I'm in a major planning mode right now. And then the summertime, all right, when I'm not teaching, it's like I have business meetings almost every day, but I build in my schedule, all right, time not to do anything.
Yeah.
All right, and I started doing this maybe, I'm gonna say about 10 years ago, all right, where it was like I just found myself being so cluttered, and now I'm having dinner with my wife and kids, and I'm like exhausted, mentally. So what I've done is I schedule certain things like today, all right, scheduled to be here, and I have a meeting at St. Thomas at 3 o'clock, all right. That's all I put on my schedule.
Yeah.
I could have put other things.
Kept it
Tomorrow
light,
I
though.
have a meeting. I look at things like there might be 2 or 3 things, and then there's time in between that I could be working on, whatever it is, But, to your point, I think it's harder to have that time now
Yeah.
because just the way the world is,
Absolutely. Have you noticed any major changes in running a business with that schedule in mind? Like when you were ultra cluttered and you didn't have time for anything compared to when you scheduled out nothing? Do you notice any major differences?
Yeah, you know what it is when I first do a tournament, like a new tournament, there's a lot of work. One, you got to look at where we're going to run it. All right. How are we going to get the teams to go in a different state? I mean, we run things in different states. So it's like, how do I get you to, well, I'll give you a good example. I'm working on something now where we're looking to possibly put something down in Charlotte. All right. And what teams would I bring in there? What are all the hotels? So we did a whole study on all the hotels. We knew where the venue was going to be. How many hotels are in the area, because we're going to need a bunch. What's going on. And that's because it's a new event. Now let's say our Black Diamond event, which is up in Scranton. We've been up there now for 12 years, I think, something like that. And first year was definitely, like that. And then after that, it gets easier. And by year 3 or 4, it's on autopilot, pretty much. We look at usually like what new teams can we get in that haven't been in it, and we'll target them. But the workload becomes less because everything's in place,
Yeah.
A lot of times I look at when we're going to do a tournament or anything, it's like, how do I get through red tape? I don't want to be hit with red tape that's going to drag me along. So who's the decision maker I have to deal with? That's who I want to deal with.
Yeah.
And I think in business, anybody who's thinking about going into that needs to look at that a lot.
Right.
And I learned from a guy who hooked me up at Fort Hamilton Army Base where we used to run our camps. And I had a meeting with the commandant and his secretary, the first meeting. And all I could remember was my question to him was, what can I do for you? And he's like, well, we're trying to get our kids on the Army base to meet other people because they move a lot, because parents moving for different, bases, right? And we want to try to get them friends. I said, I could do that, but I need one thing from you. And he's, what's that? And I said, listen, I'm a retired cop. I know about chain of command. That's how the military's run, right? I can't deal with that. Not in this situation. I need one person, one point person that we can deal with right here. And he turned around and he goes, right there, pointed to his secretary. You just deal with her. She'll get everything done for you right away. That is what I think in business is so important, is knowing how to get through that. Who are the decision makers? Go right to them. Get to know them before you even walk into the first meeting with them.
Right.
All right. But I think those are some things you have to kind of look at. So for us, what's really important is knowing when we're running something new, there's a lot of work. When we're been doing it for a while, it tapers off. Like now for Black Diamond, I'm on with my partners. on phone calls. We'll start off, we've been on 3 of them already. We'll start in January getting on once every 2 or 3 weeks. And as we get closer to the event, it's like once a week, you know? And it's like, is this in place? What else do we have to do? And we just make sure it happens, you know? That's pretty much how we roll with that.
No, I was just going to say, so creating systems so that when it's hard early on, you set up those systems for later on where it becomes autopilot and just keep it in cruise control.
Absolutely. You know, like, we actually have a checklist. Ready for this? I mean, it's 3 pages long. I'm going to say on each page is 25 things that have to get checked off.
Yeah.
So what I do is, who's ever going to direct the tournament, all right? So my partner, Mindy Hill, Mindy's my partner and coach's choice, we'll have these, and sometimes we'll hire other people to run a facility. The one thing that we're always doing is we're always there. Either Mindy or myself or both of us are always at an event. So I think that's important, because if you sign up for the event and something was to go wrong, you want to see us.
Right.
You know? And I think that's important in business sometimes. Now, that's just my business model for that. You know, a lot of businesses aren't like that, and they're very successful, you know? But I think, like, we give you this sheet of paper, and the first thing it says, get the venue. That's the first thing. Then down there, it's like, you know, who's going to work your door? Who's going to do this? And it's just straight down the list. And by the time you're done, if every box is changed, that thing should run really smooth.
Yeah, it's got to be meticulous.
Yeah,
you know,
so
it's gotta be
we have
meticulous
that
in the
for,
beginning.
you know, every event that we do that. And that was setting up in the beginning, like, you know, it was, that list has changed. You know, every year it kind of changes a little bit. You know, like when we first started doing tournaments, you got to remember, there was no social media.
Right.
Now half the page is like,
how's that affected your business?
Oh, tremendously. You know, it's interesting. I'm not a social media guy in general, like for myself. You know, like, I think the worst thing you could do is put out things out there.
Yeah.
Nothing good ever comes out.
It's an old school mindset,
Right.
too. I think I try to adapt to that as well. I think that the more you give people, the more chances they have of trying to find something to put onto you, right? And people will talk about you regardless, whether
sure.
you're on it or not, whether you're doing anything or not. You could be at your house and people can talk about you, and you haven't even existed in their lives. So,
you know what? I think the first thing is, if you talk about other people, the first thing to a lot of people, it's like, why are they saying this right now?
yeah.
You know? Now, they might just smile at you and just nod and things like that, but I think most people really don't want to hear a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? To me, I live in the world of kids. You will never see me say anything bad about a kid.
Correct.
All right. And the only thing I want to do is show the good things about them. You know, I get a lot of college coaches calling me up on players. That's a little different conversation, because little Mary, who could be a really good kid, might not handle pressure well in games. Well, am I going to put that on a Twitter thing saying, guess what, little Mary can't handle the pressure? I'm not doing it. You can't do that to anybody.
And how you vocalize it too in language. I talk about it with him all the time. Language is extremely important as you get older, and how you use it and how you say certain things will determine a lot of your discernment, how other people discern what you say.
Well, you know, if you make an enemy out of somebody, you've just made 10 others.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And those 10 others, they're telling 10 other people. So in the long run, you've just made 100 people, you know, like that. So to me, it's always been, I live my life like this. I always say, you know, what would Jesus do? So every time I have to say something, it kind of pops into my head like, you know, what would Jesus do? I want to make sure I don't want to play God, you know? So I think, you know, when you're talking about people in general, that's you're almost trying to do that. I think it's wrong. It's just me. We had a few years ago, somebody put on social media. I had taken a job at a place when I was working with somebody, and somebody put something out there to my son Dominic. My son Dom put, "Hey, I want to congratulate my dad. He's back into coaching," right? It's just really nice and innocently, right? And the person responded back to him like, "How could he do this with this person coaching with him?" Right? And it was like, why would you do that?
Right.
And
why would you step
you're
on someone's
back to a kid like that, Why would you do that? So to me, I think what's so important is looking at the good things. I'm a really positive person in general, where, when something's wrong, I want to take care of it right away. I don't want it to linger.
Right.
You know? But I think what's really important is staying very focused in what you have to do.
Yeah.
And being positive about that. If we disagree, on something, a lot.
Yeah.
I just want to still leave like, hey, we still can do business. We just disagree on this thing, let's say, or whatever it could possibly be, something like that. But that's how we try to roll.
You want to get things out of the way, and you want to figure it out early in disputes, right? Like you just said, you kind of want to get, if there's a problem, we want to fix it right away.
Yeah, if you let it linger, man, you could be in for a war.
Right. Well, so that's why I think it's interesting you say that, because my girl is the opposite, right? So like, is that a male and female thing? Do you think like that men want to get things out of the way first? We want to address it now versus like time and place. Let's address this when we think it's the right moment. Because like, I'm all about like, if there's a problem, we got to address it now. Like if we can address it later, and we had a problem today, by the time you leave here, it's done.
Well, I can tell you this, I just had my 35th anniversary last week.
Congratulations.
Hey.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful stuff.
And I mean, my wife is by far my best friend. And I'll tell you one thing. If Debbie's got something to say, she'll tell me.
That's what we like to hear.
Like right away, because I think she just doesn't want to let it linger and things like that. It's interesting when you look at men and women, because on how they deal with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
See, when I was a kid, most women were home taking care of kids. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden got into the workforce, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's phenomenal. Like, I started Coach's Choice because I saw how everything was centered around guys.
Right.
And I didn't think that was right. When I was coaching at St. Francis, Title IX was in existence for 2 years at that point. Mm-hmm. So I remember our team got a pair of sneakers. Mm-hmm. It was the first time they ever got it. And the girls, it was like they were elated. This was great, right?
Yeah.
But the guys that year got 4 pair of sneakers, sweats, shooting shirts, the whole 9 yards, right?
Right.
And I thought that was wrong. Mm-hmm. So when I started Coach's Choice, we used to do more boys stuff. Now we do it once in a while. Our training that we do, our camps will be, a lot of them are co-ed, all right? But we stayed in the lane of women's basketball, mm-hmm. mainly because I wanted to see that we could really help women. And, I think back, again, let's say we're on that train and you're thinking, right, we've done, I think, a lot in the world of, girls basketball. And we just always wanted to put a platform out there. And I'll say this, is we have had our high school tournaments that we've done. We've been doing them for about 15, 16 years now. We have probably had 500, 600, 700 Division I players come through those.
Excellent.
Yeah. And by social media now, being able to put that out there, mm-hmm. I think that's something that's really kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
To help people. we also tell people if you want to put your highlights up, if you send it to us in Twitter, we'll do that for you, and we do that all the time. All right, just any way we can help you,
Right.
we'll do that. You know, if we can't help you, we'll tell you. But I can't remember any of those conversations.
Yeah.
We do what we can to help everybody.
How is women in business affected you mentally and emotionally? How's that been from a business perspective? And how has that made you, what kind of person has that turned you into to today? Because you work with a lot of women in business as well.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of women in business too. How's that kind of changed the way you've looked at how things are ran on a day-to-day?
I think I just treat women in business the same way I treat guys.
Okay.
There's nothing different, and I don't think they want it to be different.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I also like with coaching. You know, my basketball practices. You know, what we've always done it's what I would do with guys. There's nothing that's different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the same intensity we want to go. All
Right.
I think I've seen this with a lot of teams because I go seeing a lot of teams practice and stuff. I love watching other teams practice because you can learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see things that you just say.
You want to stay away from
right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes see when you have coaches, let's say coaching women, where all of a sudden they hold back
Yeah.
a little bit. And I think that the girls know that and really don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, I think now, especially now, they all want to be challenged. I see them, they all want to be challenged. And I think, you know, that's how I've always looked at it, even in business. You know, I love helping. Here's the thing. I saw this when I was at Stevens Institute. Stevens is a big engineering school.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get more women into where they become managers in it. I mean, they're a minority in engineering, but the way they can move up is really quick.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it becomes giving people a platform where they can do their thing, all right, and giving an opportunity, you know. I mean, what makes us give, people opportunities? Think about that one. Like, what makes you want to give somebody an opportunity?
Yeah.
So to me, and we both help with Marina Paul.
Yes. Shout out to Marina.
All right. And, shout out to Marina. New in business and everything. My main thing is I think she's a tremendous person. I think she's a tremendous story.
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to make sure she's successful.
Yes. Yeah.
And the people that I work with and stuff, I always go in trying to help them to become successful.
I think that's kind of the volunteer aspect of what you talk
Yes.
about too. Is
Absolutely.
I think that plays a huge role in wanting to see that. I think I am in that same vein because I volunteered a lot when I was a kid, and I did a lot of mission trips as a child, and so seeing and giving back with no return, you kind of understand what not necessarily a thankless position, but you're okay with it every now and then. Like, you're okay to not get the credit, and you're okay to not get some sort of residual income back from that. Like, it's just giving. You want to give to somebody because you want to see them be successful in their venture. And so I think that's lost a lot today on building not only the relationship, but seeing someone else be successful without a gain.
Well, I think for me, the credit part, it all has to do with my faith.
Yes.
All right. So I look at it where when the end comes, there's only one person.
Yep.
Gives me some
I like
credit.
that. I like
All
that.
right? But besides that, I think when you go helping people, the greatest feeling is when somebody says just thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Truly thank you too. Like that feeling where it's gratitude.
Yes.
That real gratitude that you can get from somebody, you can feel that. You can almost taste that. It's tangible.
Well, I think people, it's funny you bring up gratitude because, I mean, we could do a podcast strictly on gratitude,
Right.
I think a lot of kids don't quite understand everything about that yet,
Not yet.
I think as we get older, we look at that much, much differently. All right. When I first started Coach's Choice, it was like I wanted to put out a good product for people. Then all of a sudden it becomes a business.
Right. Right.
And then it becomes where people are depending on you. So not only is it on the business end, but now it's like, hey, what do you mean you're not having this tournament again? Right?
Right.
You're like, oh, okay.
It's inadvertently in part of everybody's livelihood now,
Yeah.
and now it's like we got to survive.
I look at it like, man, I owe the people who have come, to our events and stuff a lot because, they trust me.
Right.
Right. That's the big thing. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. It goes a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, just seeing the world differently, and for many reasons, here I was coaching at a very young age and appreciating it. Now I'll tell you a story that was really interesting when I was coaching at St. Francis, is I'm 19 and the kids I'm coaching, with are all in my classes.
Yeah.
They're friends of mine.
Right.
And I can remember one night they were all going out to a bar. And I went with them. Because here I am, 19. I'm still that kid a bit, right?
Yeah, flimsy, just running around. Yeah.
Hang out with them,
Right.
And the next morning, Diane Nolan's got me in her office saying, did you go out to the bar with these girls last night? And I was like, yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, it was great.
Right? And she goes, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? I didn't, again,
You were
now, you're
green,
hiring
yeah,
a
you're-
19-year-old, so you better be prepared to help them along the line. Right?
Right.
So, she told me, she goes, look, that's like me going out. You're an assistant here now.
Yeah.
And when she said that, it was like, wow, on my chest went, I'm an assistant.
Yeah, you
right?
became an authority figure.
Well,
yeah.
Then you realize, like, man, you got to be a little different, I grew up in a business. My father owned a trucking business, all right? So I knew what business was like at a young age. And I think the biggest thing, my father, I always felt he was very respected by all his clients and stuff. He would walk in, everybody would do him, and they would just be talking with him and having a good time. And my father once told me, like, get to know your clients.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go into business, get to know people. What's happening when things are wrong. I train a kid. I just found out, yesterday, we were supposed to train yesterday. His grandmother passed away.
Yeah.
Right? And his mom called me to tell me, and so I'm just texting him, hey, you need something, give me a call. I'll give him a day or two. I will obviously call him,
Right.
But, when things like that happen, in business alone, like, if you find out something was wrong, do you give them a little attitude?
Yeah. Right.
Let's say I'm working for you and all of a sudden you have a death in the family or something, what are you going to do? Say, see you on Monday? You know what I mean? It's like, I can remember when my daughter passed away, I couldn't tell you what day of the week it was.
Right. Yeah.
So I think sometimes the things you go through in life, as you're seeing, really teach you so many lessons.
Yeah.
But you got to be put into certain situations sometimes, that you learn, wow, man, this is a hard thing, like they always say, God gives you these mountains to climb over, man. Sometimes you get Mount Everest.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
So, it's a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, just on that point, what would your one piece of life advice be for someone if they were to ask you for it?
I would just say treat people the way you'd want to be treated. All right. I've always believed in that. If I can help somebody out, why not? That's how I look at it. If I can't, at times somebody's asked me sometimes, can you help me with this? And maybe I can't, for whatever reason.
Right.
I'll tell them, look, I can't, maybe I can put you in a direction, but I can't, and, but to me, it's always about treating people with respect, and things like that. That means a lot to me.
How important is it? And I guess what have you seen from growing up, and how? I guess actually, let me give you a different question, because this is it's like kind of a twofold question here. I think people want to do a lot of different things at once these days. They want to be good at a lot of different things as opposed to being a master at one of those things. And he talks about it a lot, of being a master of one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? How important is it to be good at something, one, and then how important is it to be good at being a master at something?
All right, I'm going to equate this to basketball. Okay?
Yeah, please.
All right, there's only one guy in the Basketball Hall of Fame that did not score in double digits, and that's Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
All right? But Rodman's considered, one of the greatest rebounders of all time. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
He won a bunch of championships, okay? But to what we're talking about here, he was great at one thing, that and shot block. Okay.
Right.
I tell players all the time, if you can do one thing in basketball great, be the best at it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's probably gonna want you on their team,
Right. Right.
Because of that. If you can do two or three things, now you're really, really strong.
Right.
I think in life, I've done the jack of all trades, master of none. All right, where trying to work on a few different things. I've learned I'm better when I focus on one now.
Yeah.
I used to think, multitasking came out. That word came out like in the 90s, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And everybody, I got to multitask, right? But meanwhile, you're missing. Goes to that checklist I was telling you that we have, right?
You're missing
maybe
something,
all of a sudden
yeah.
you're missing two or three things on that checklist, which could be a domino effect, right?
Right.
So now to me, it's like trying to stay in a lane. Let's get this thing done. Let's get this thing done. Let's get this thing done. And doing that. Now, like right now, we're getting ready, as I said before, our high school events. So there's a lot come into play on all of them, like our social media, for instance, right? So once I've done one, it's like, okay, let's just move this over here and here, or if you're doing it for me, I'm saying, okay, Quinn, can we do these 3 dates,
Right.
4 dates, let's say, right? So a lot of that just kind of moves in, but our first event is in Philadelphia on December 27th, so I'm more zeroed in that one than the next one, And once we have everything definitely in play, then I can go finish the next one, and we just kind of move down like that.
Sure.
Makes it a little easier. But that's kind of it. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned, like, let me just get this thing, get it right.
Right.
Let's not miss a beat on anything, because if we don't, we're going to be successful in it.
Absolutely.
And then go to the next thing.
Well, speaking of your high school events, obviously we're going to be doing one together. Again, we're doing the Homedale event, February 3rd and the 4th. Kind of talk to people about that, and I can get into a lot of what we're going to be bringing this year. Obviously, we have some upgrades and some new things, but talk about how important that event is for you and what it brings to the community.
Well, the way we started Homedale, our first high school event we ever did was our Staten Island Challenge, which we still do. And that's been going for about 15, 16 years. My partner, Randy Westrall, asked me one day, he was like, gee, we should do something maybe at Homedale here, so we did. And
why Homedale?
Well, Randy at the time was the athletic director there.
Okay.
So he was like, I think I can get us the gym and stuff like this. So we did it for about 3 or 4 years. And then I asked Randy to come in as a minority partner with Coach's Choice. All right. And after that, and because he was retiring.
Yeah.
And I looked at it as he's a highly organized guy, very organized. And in business, I think you got to find people who are better than you.
Yes,
in things.
I
And
agree.
Randy he's more organized than I am. All right, so I look at hiring people who are going to really enhance what we do.
Yes.
And so we've been there now for a long time, and each year it kind of got a little bigger. We'd add a little something here, and I think that's sometimes the best way to do something and make it right. And now having you guys come in, with Marina Paul, all right, also, I don't know if I want us to say exactly what we're doing yet.
Not yet. No, some of it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
It'll be a good surprise, I think, to all the kids
Right.
Playing in the event. But it's going to really enhance what Homedale's about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just to let everybody know, the event is February 3rd and 4th, and we're at Homedale High School. We have always gotten the best teams out of the Shore Conference to play anybody else. So
shout out to the Shore Conference, man.
I
Shore
love
Conference,
the event.
Shore Conference veteran right here. Shore Conference alum.
Memorial, there you go. I love the Homedale event because the games we've had over the years have been just incredible.
Yeah.
We had John Vianney play Osselin High School when Sanaya Chong played there, who played in WNBA, played at UConn.
Yeah.
It was 4 overtimes.
Wow.
All right. And if I remember right, I think the score was like 106 to 102, something like that. It was like the first time you saw women in triple digits, in a game like that. It looked like an NBA game.
And what's funny about that even is like there's that pushes the schedule back, but everybody's locked in at that point. Like everybody's watching the game before their game, and eventually they're like, okay, like this is almost pushing back 2 games.
Happened? And I mean, I like to pride ourselves, like when we're doing AAU tournaments, high school events, we're on time. I mean, that's like the biggest thing. I'm a stickler for time. And but that day, we were 2 hours backed up. That was the 4th game out of 5. And the next game, they were waiting. The referees for the next game are standing next to me, and they're like, man, I almost feel like we're doing 2 games.
Yeah.
But it just, the crowd was going nuts. I mean, it was so much excitement going on. Then we had one year where Manasquan was playing Rutgers Prep.
Yeah.
And it just aligned, like the stars aligned, where it was number 1 team, number 2 team in the state playing each other.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
So that,
it's a dogfight.
When you get that, we've had it a few times, is huge, whenever that happens. So, I think some of the games that we've had just over the years have been tremendous. I mean, we've had kids who were, the best player in the country playing the event.
Right.
So like, when you get in that, Diamond Miller played in the event. She's in the WNBA
Shout out to
right
Diamond
now,
Miller, man.
When she was at Franklin High School, and she played in my AAU program with the
Would
Lightning.
love to get Diamond Miller on here.
So
love to get her on.
Some of the people we've had has just been, great, and the games. I mean, most of them are highly competitive. What we try to do, we work hard on this too, is making good matchups.
Yeah. Styles make fights. That's it. They do.
So
they really do.
It's almost like when you had Muhammad Ali fight and George Frazier. Well, who were the bouts before them leading up to that?
Right.
They're really good events. And I think it's my favorite tournaments that we have on the high school end is the Homedale event, because of just the competition is
the venue's really nice too.
Yeah, it is. What's nice about Homedale? It fits close to 1,000 people tops, but it's filled.
Yeah.
By the 3rd game, everything's filled in there, and it's fun. The year Manasquan played Rutgers Prep, we had a line out the door. We had to turn people away.
Yeah.
And that taught us something like a little bit, because it had never happened to us before.
Right.
And there were probably I'm gonna say at least 100, 150 people we couldn't let in.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
Because fire marshal walks in, you know, and we're done, right?
Yeah, standing room is not really a thing as much anymore, which it used to be. Like that's like a big thing in like New York. That's a big thing in Newark basketball. Like there's something that creates that. That's where I think the high school sports is so pure, right? Because you can have that. Kind of almost like illegal style, but like it kind of happens naturally, like because of how much the draw is, and like I think that comes into the NIL kind of point too. Is that's where the value of the athlete kind of they have to understand what they are, because you can bring a crowd of 2,000-3,000 people in to come and watch you play, like you are a commodity, you are, and how you use that name and image and likeness will help you.
Well, the Homedale event also for us, it's like a Hoosier type thing. You know, Homedale's a nice gym, but there are bigger ones.
For sure,
all right?
For sure.
We've talked about at times like moving the event because of the amount of people we get. But I've always
Tom's River, that's big too.
Yeah, well, actually, Tom's River was a place Randy brought up. You know, like, hey, maybe we can go down to Tom's River. You know, and I turned around and I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because we're playing in a place right now. That's like playing at the Prudential Center, all right? And all of a sudden, you're Seton Hall, you know, playing there, and you fill it up because you're good.
Yeah.
And 1 year, you're not good. And now there's 2,000 people in there. It looks like a ghost town.
Yeah.
You know? So to me, like what I like with Homedale, it's full.
Yeah.
And to have kids play in that environment, I think is great.
Yeah.
You know, especially, you know, we're dealing with a lot of kids who not only play Division I, but Division II and III basketball.
Yeah.
So, like, when you look at all the teams in there, I'm going to say, like, maybe half of the kids are going to play someplace.
Yeah, in college, right.
So now, you know, you're used to being in front of a crowd because it is going to happen somewhere along the line probably to you, you know, that you got to do that. So I think when you
create those pressurized environments,
yeah, and it's cool. You know, it's cool. Definitely a loud event.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're going to have a ton of fun there. I'm really excited for it, and I know the upgrades that we got, and it's going to be really good for the fans.
Well, so. I just, you know, again, you know, I appreciate you guys, you know, coming in as 100%. A sponsor with it, and also Marina. I just think it's going to add, you know, to the event a lot this year.
Right. Yeah, we've got some really cool things.
Yeah, it is really cool. So,
but I am good, man.
Good.
Ty, you got anything?
I got nothing. That was phenomenal.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming.
Excellent, man. Thank you for coming. You are a friend of the show, so you can come on anytime you want. Come chat, come hang out with us. Bring any other people you got coming on too.
Realize we were filming.
Listen, that couch will sink you in, man. That once you get inside that couch, that's why I tell. I was like, listen, we got to get the guests in the couch. It's nice. Comfy. It does. Yeah, thank you for the time. Get anybody you want on here as well. You know, bring anybody you want to come chat. We love stories. We're also going to get some Patreon content too, where we'll be able to have people subscribe to what we do. Maybe we can get some kind of behind the scenes stuff. You know, we're probably going to have some behind the scenes stuff as well for the Homedale process. You know, whether it's setting up to the interviews, we've got a lot of things going on. So
you know what would be, I could see if I could do this, man. Seeing if we can get a couple of kids who would play in it to come.
Yeah, priors. I would love it.
The only hard thing might be where, you know, getting them here, like, you know.
Well, we could go there. We can go
that could definitely, like, if it was at a school, it would definitely work.
It's easy.
It would definitely work.
Yeah. We can get a few of them on and just have them sit down for 10 to 15 minutes each, and then they just keep cycling in and out.
Right.
You know?
That would be cool. Yeah. All right, so you want me to make some calls?
Yeah,
I can make some phone calls and see what we can do.
Oh, let's do it.
I know I can get us some St. Thomas kids for sure. But,
yeah.
If we were able to do some of that might really add to it.
We can even find a place that is in that centralized kind of location of the shore that, like, maybe we could create an aesthetic. We could, you know, rent something out and then have the kids come on different times, different time frames, and kind of do some off the record interviews.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe just do it at Homedale. See if we can get, like, Homedale's gym if nobody's there.
Right.
You know, and they're sitting in the seats, you know, just kind of relaxed, and you're asking them some questions and stuff like that. That might be something pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Let me work on that. I'll see what I can do.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Like, view, subscribe
Yep.
on all platforms. That was Tom Sclafani, man.
Hey.
Great stuff.
Thank you for having me.
Great
Thank
stuff,
you.
man. Thank you.